vision, leadership, workplace-related topics. The Voices of Victory podcast show. Subscribe today. Let's go.
Vision, leadership, self-esteem, workplace-related topics.
Subscribe.
The Voices of Victory podcast show.
Voices of Victory.
Vision,
Voices of Victory.
leadership,
Voices of Victory.
workplace-related topics.
The Voices of Victory.
Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory.
It's time for the show. You are now listening to the Voices of Victory podcast show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mario Di Leone.
Hello and welcome to the Voices of Victory podcast. I am your host, Mario Di Leone, and today we have a very unique topic. And this topic I'm going to come across very hard on, and I'm also going to come across from a psychological framework. There is some circles out there. When you go into leadership, you usually connect to positive thinking. Positive thinking can connect itself to a concept called manifestation, and manifestation could connect itself to something called law of attraction. Now, there's this concept out there. Now, I'm not going to sit here and speak negative. I'm going to be objective about it. The name of this concept is called be delusional. There are people out there on social media that are literally telling other people to quote unquote be delusional. No, if you want to manifest something, be delusional. Okay. Now, what they're not understanding, while they're meaning well, they have good intent to tell that to people. But the fact is people are going to be misunderstanding that. That's the reality, because we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. So there's no objectivity to it. When people use that word, that phrase, be delusional, there's a mental health risk of escaping reality in the name of manifestation. Okay. And I'm going to go into a deeper look on this. So when you're told to quote unquote be delusional, it sounds empowering, right? At first, it says just ignore your current life, pretend that you're already there, and let the universe just catch up. But in practice, this idea is marketed as a fearless self-belief. It can cause some serious mental health disruptions. So let's explore that deep from a mental health and emotional risk, because this mindset carries that risk, especially in relationship to anxiety, depression, and your overall sense of self. Because when your external reality is not matching your internal reality, then that's how depression actually occurs, right? Now, let's go first in saying there are some health risks of this concept of be delusional. The chronic anxiety from living in two worlds that your nervous system knows the actual truth. So even if you chant like I'm happy, I'm loved, my body keeps score with that. It notices the unpaid bills. It notices the unresolved conflict. It notices the loneliness. Okay, this very dissonance creates chronic low-grade anxiety because you're constantly negotiating between what is and what you're pretending to be, right? Doesn't mean you can't have goals, and it doesn't mean you can't future think, but a lot of your work has to be done in the here and now. And over time, your system is in a state of alert of why don't things feel right? And that tension becomes emotional fatigue, and it becomes draining. So what's going to happen is you're going to get an emotional rejection of the present moment of being delusional, because being delusional asks you to reject where you are now. And that might mean hating your job, your body, or your bank account, not because they're truly unbearable, because they don't match your fantasy. So this fantasy projection, this rejection of the present, teaches your brain that happiness is only found in some imagined future, not right here and not right now. It's the constant external chase that is so harsh that it's in the future. That how could you possibly be happy in the moment unless you tap into your own sense of self-contentment in the moment? And that's a fast road to depression, ladies and gentlemen, because it removes all joy and it removes all meaning from your current life. We are meaning-making machines, and don't get me wrong. And I do believe to some degree that yes, we can indeed manifest our reality as it relates to a self-fulfilling prophecy in psychology, plus maybe a little bit more. But we have to understand the increased sense of failure when the vision doesn't manifest, when things don't show up, even with all your affirmations. And affirmations are powerful because they keep your mind in a very good place. But when you fall into that delusional belief, if you internalize it, that maybe I'm not enough, maybe I did wrong, right? Maybe I'm not content with who I am. This creates a sense of shame, which feeds the anxiety, it feeds the depression cycles. So rather than adjusting your strategy, you blame yourself for not being quote unquote delusional enough. And there are people out there on social media, they're saying, be delusional. And they're like screaming at the camera saying this, not realizing that if you do happen to reach somebody with that video and they have an actual mental illness, you are perpetuating that. You are actually speaking not to them, you're speaking into them. Remember that. There's a difference between speaking to someone and speaking into them. When someone says, you'll never be anything in life, that's speaking into you. When someone says, no, you must be delusional, that's speaking into somebody, right? So there's an avoidance here. There's an avoidance of the root issues, or maybe even their own healing. And some of these manifestation trends, they ignore the need to address things that are deeper at the core wounds, the unhealthy beliefs, right? Sometimes they do. I'm sure there's some people that actually do. But being delusional becomes a way to bypass real healing. It pushes away what's painful. You have to understand, pain is an actual teacher. And that's the thing, is everybody wants to push away pain instead of actually integrate it. I'd like to say pain provides insights, not necessarily a teacher per se. Let me rephrase that. But it is containing insights. Insights are more neutral. If we start to look at them as lessons, we feel like we're being punished by the universe. Forgive me for saying that. But suppressed pain doesn't disappear. It festers. It shows up as rage, frustration, apathy, angry. You become angry when your reality doesn't match up. The insecurity, the hopelessness. You can't out-manifest your subconscious. It's going to surface until it's heard and understood. That's my point. The confusion between fantasy and identity, the whole be delusional, it blurs the line between who you are becoming and who you are pretending to be, forgetting about the level of work that actually has to go into the current reality. The funniest thing in the world that brings a great light to this is Dr. John DeMartini. He was in The Secret. I love him. Nothing negative to say. He was in the movie The Secret, and he's an intelligent businessman and an extremely wise philosopher. And one of the things that he was in a workshop, and one of the ladies in the workshop said, I've been trying for months and months and months. I've been trying to manifest like $10,000 like in my, my mailbox. I've been trying to manifest that over and over and over again. And he believes in manifestation, and he opens up his mouth and says, have you tried working? And this is the point I want to bring out. I don't care what kind of beliefs you have in the future in terms of what you want to manifest, what you want to do with your life, your goals, your dreams, your direction. Work in the present, please. Please work in the present. Please be in the moment. Please be in the now. Do the work. Do the labor. Do what's required today. Do what is required. Do the work. There's effort. If you think reality is not going to shift without a level of effort, and then some people will come out and say their argument with that is, oh, well, that's your belief because your belief actually guides it. No. Let's not get that twisted. The material world has to move too, period. Okay? You have that intellectual mind. You have the material realm, which has to move. Things have to happen in the material realm. And you have that emotional world that's inside of you, right? This is where it's all going. So let's not ignore the fact that there's a level of work that has to occur. There's a level of work that must actually occur. That level of work is important. Okay? The level of work and the level of effort has to occur in the material world. Okay? When it comes to your emotions are on the inside of you. Yes, your emotions are part and parcel of everything. And then, of course, you have to have a passion. You have to have a desire. If you don't have a strong enough passion, you don't have a strong enough desire, you don't have a strong enough why, you can't move anything forward, right? When it comes down to the material world, what is reign supreme is not goals. It's systems. Systems get you to where you need to be. And then finally, you have your intellect. So just imagine that the four parts of that, right? You got your intellectual aspect, you got your desire and passion aspect, you got your emotional aspect, and then we finally have the material realm, the realm where everything comes out. All of the efforts that you put in. You got to remember, everything was a thought at one point. The t-shirt you're wearing was a thought in somebody's head. The car you're driving was a thought in somebody's head. So yes, you have to pay attention to the material realm. It's so important for you to know that. But when the human identity fails to match your life to the externals, you begin to feel like a fraud, or worse, you lose track of your authentic nature. And you know what? This leads to almost like an identity disorientation, a major driver of both anxiety and depression depression. So when you want to say to people, be delusional, be careful, please, as to who you're actually saying it to. Most people don't care. They want to get the message across for their clicks and algorithms and the likes, that they forget about the very damage that they could be doing to somebody. Because it's kind of like loneliness from over isolation. You know, the people who follow the whole delusional manifestation advice, they pull away from those friends or loved ones who actually challenge their fantasy, not realizing that challenges actually make you grow, and they may not understand how to challenge that. So while boundaries are healthy, total isolation in the name of protecting your own energy can make you socially and emotionally disconnected. And you know what? That isolation leads to loneliness, depression, and lots of good old-fashioned distrust. There's an inability to cope with adversity when you're avoiding constant discomfort. When you avoid pain and you only seek pleasure, you are neglecting the process of actually processing that discomfort. You're not building resilience, you're building a bubble. And when life throws you a curveball, instead of actually processing that curveball, moving through it, maybe even transforming it so you could stand on it and move forward. If it throws you a curveball, and it always does, you're going to be unprepared to actually deal with it because your mindset didn't teach you how to navigate setbacks with presence, strategy, and a level of resilience. So a better way of understanding is having grounded visioning. You can have vision, but be grounded about it. Find a way to bring those ideas down to earth instead of being delusional. Try being visionary with your feet on the ground and practice radical acceptance of where you are, along with some strategic optimism about where you're going. Because optimism is the true contrarian, not the cynic. And building a life with clarity, not just fantasy. You've got to be able to bring the future down to the ground and actually do the work in the present to make it happen. So yes, you know, when you speak words to affirm something as a motivation, that's awesome. It's helping your mindset, not as a denial. So you don't need to be delusional to quote unquote manifest a beautiful life. Please be careful with this. People don't even realize the damage they're doing. You don't need to be this overly delusional, over hopeful, over willing to do the inner and outer work that's necessary to have the life that you want to have. A grounded belief is more powerful than a borrowed fantasy. Don't ever forget that. You got to protect your mental health. You got to honor your truth, and you got to let reality evolve. Do the level of work in the present, not by escaping it, by partnering up with it. Yes, self-fulfilling prophecy can indeed manifest new things in your life. No one truly knows to the level or extreme. No one truly knows how far we could really go with that. So you've got to understand the concept I'm bringing to the table here is you've got to watch your psychology. Anybody who uses that concept of be delusional and throws it out there, you need to question whether or not they're actually perceiving reality in a way that supports their mental health. This is not a matter of having a lofty goal. Some people have the most loftiest of loftiest goal, and they can't bring shit down to the ground. What I'm basically trying to say is they have all this lofty fantasy-like, impressions, all of these lofty visions, these lofty, but they have zero capacity and ability and willpower to bring that down to the planet and make it come to fruition, to actually put the level of hard fucking work into it to actually make it happen and make it come to life. So you know what they do? They live in that loftiness forever. Do the work. That's all I'm going to say. Watch your mental health the next time someone says be delusional. You've got to question their mental health at that point. You've got to question that. And you also got to question whether or not they're going to get depressed or have a level of anxiety because of how that mindset will manufacture depression and manufacture anxiety. Have a great day. See you on the next episode.